Hello, everyone, and welcome in. Happy Sunday to you. It's 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. We appreciate you tuning in live here on the Crowded Booth, talking a little Georgia Tech on a Sunday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hang out with us on all of those platforms as well. We'll be live tonight talking about Week 12 of college football. But today and right now, this is Swarm Talk, all things Georgia Tech right here in the Crowded Booth, and I'm your host, Bryce Koon. Before we get started, once again, throwing it out there, we are going to be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the Blue Lot. Come hang out with us for clean old-fashioned hate, little tailgate action before the game. Excited to be there, excited to get to Atlanta. And hey, not getting too far ahead, but if the Jackets win this weekend, the plan is to be in Charlotte there as well. So we appreciate you. We thank you so much for tuning in. Let's rock and roll here on a Sunday afternoon. You know, this is a game, and went back and watched it late last night. This is a game to me that is a test of your ultimate will. It's a test of who you are, and it's a test of how good are you really. And look, there were a lot of things answered on Saturday. There were a lot of things that remain in question after Saturday's win. So it to me is going to be one of those things where you kind of sit and say, bottom line, you won the football game. And at this point of the season, that's why I titled it Survive and Advance, right? That's what you want to do. You want to survive and advance to be able to move on, move along here in the conference, get an inch closer, get an inch, but also inch closer to a spot, securing a spot in the ACC title game. I thought Brent Key's post-game social media video that Georgia Tech put out was spot on, absolutely perfect message from the head coach there as well. From now on, this is a championship level team. Has to be a championship level performance each and every single week. You've got to go out there. You've got to treat it like it's a playoff because it is now. That's what you're playing for. So I think just kicking the show off, the one thing that you have to know is that this was a game where you go up to Boston College. They had played Notre Dame pretty competitively a couple of weeks ago. SMU destroyed them. And I didn't mince words in, Friday morning's preview show when I sat there and told you, hey, look, this is a team that as of right now, you are going to need to see go up there and dominate. If you're the committee, if you're the AP poll voters that'll come out a little bit later today, if a lot of these things are going to go your way, you have to make a convincing statement. Now, that did not happen on Saturday. The good news is you got the win. The worst case scenario was you don't prove to the committee and you lose the football game, effectively ending your chances, ending your chances to control your destiny to the playoff. You still do that. We wake up on Sunday morning and Georgia Tech still controls their destiny for the playoff. So that's just getting it out of the way. I didn't mince words on Friday's morning show. Boston College is not a good football team. They are not a very good team. They don't do a lot of things great. Offensively, they did not look the part coming into the game, but credit to them. Backs against the wall, the wounded animal. They're 1-9, and they fought and they battled. That's admirable. And you tell me, Bryce, why is that admirable? Because Georgia Tech fans, you have been in that spot before. Maybe not a 1-9 record, but you have been that team that is had the rough season, had the bad season, and for them, to, especially in Brent Key's interim takeover, you saw that team with not a ton to play for. At that point, an interim head coach, but they fought. And while Boston College doesn't have an interim head coach, you can understand, hey, they still have some talent. Things have gone haywire this year. Dylan Lonergan put on a clinic against you. We'll talk about that and more. So I think that is, for me, one of the biggest calling cards and keys of this game coming out of it is you wake up on Sunday morning, you still control your destiny. Things are shaky in terms of your defense. We're going to get to that. But just overall with what you have going on, you still control your destiny. That's what you need to leave Chestnut Hill with, and you did it. So there you go. And it'll be interesting to see what the rankings when they come out today. I'm not paying too much attention to the AP poll, but I think in terms of the playoff rankings on Tuesday, it'll be very interesting to see what happens to Georgia Tech after a lot of this. So Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Let's dive in. Before we do that, we want to pay attention to one of our fantastic sponsors. They do a great work. Section 103. You can rock the polo down there at the bottom. I've got it. I absolutely love it. You can get some cold weather gear. They've got great hoodies, and you can get more teams than just Georgia Tech. We obviously know a lot of Yellow Jacket fans are paying attention to this show, but we've got LSU gear. We've got Georgia Southern gear, and we've got Kennesaw State gear. Owls suffered a tough loss last night in conference play to Jacksonville State. But all that saying is, make sure you use code TCB10 to get that gift for your family member. They do a fantastic job. Section 103 is the brand you want if you're a Georgia Tech fan, and we love their partnership for the 4th consecutive year. Shout out them. They're doing fantastic things, continuing to grow, and we are really happy to continue to support that. So let's dive into kind of what we liked in this game. Obviously, PFF is not the Bible. It is for some people. It's not the Bible. I think it's a useful tool, though, for you to be able to glean some things and maybe gain a better understanding. You don't take everything away from it and base your entire judgment of a team or a player off of it, but it's a useful tool analytically that can give you some things there as well. So let's take a look real quick at what I liked. Obviously, let's start with Jordan Allen. This is something to me when you look at what this kid was. And look, we had him on the show when he flipped from Louisville last year. When you put a player as a true freshman on the field, one of the biggest things you have to do is to make sure that you're not, one, overwhelming him. That's not a knock against Jordan Allen. College offenses are more complex. The college game is more complex than even at the highest level of high school football, which Jordan Allen played at. But when you put a guy into a game and you'd say, hey, we need you to be not just a decoy, but they're starting to feature him more and more. One, you've got to make sure he's comfortable, but the onus is on Buster Faulkner to make sure that he is creating and designing opportunities tailored to that young man that fits where he is mentally in the game. Now, physically, we all know, we've all seen, we've all talked about the physical traits and gifts that Jordan Allen has. Very elite track runner in high school. He's got elite track speed. We've seen a lot of those things. But the biggest thing I like about this, it's two-part. You have an incredible athlete in Jordan Allen, but you've got a great play caller in Buster Faulkner that understands how to utilize his talents the best way. Look, folks, and I saw Zach in the comments. There's a lot of teams across college football, and Zach can vouch from here, that have talent at different skill positions. But the inability for the coordinator or the coach to put those guys in the right spot, put all the puzzle pieces together, limits their effectiveness. That's not a problem for Buster Faulkner right now. Are there some guys that deserve more playing time? Yeah, we've seen it at the running back position. Malachi Hosley has looked fantastic. But Jordan Allen in this role, where they have him right now, it is remarkable the way that Buster Faulkner can tailor to his team's strengths. And that, to me, is what I liked in this game. Obviously, Georgia Tech needed something other than Haynes King, right? I mean, look, when your defense, and we'll get to in a second, when your defense gives up what they're giving up, Haynes King is great football player, like great college football player. It's a lot to sit there and ask him every single time that, hey, you can't blink. Like, for anybody, even a Heisman winner, that is a lot to ask. You're not going to have a ton of success doing that. So making sure that you find your pieces that are very useful and you utilize that in the correct way, I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. So what I liked in this was Buster Faulkner's utilization of certain players, and then most namely there in Jordan Allen. I mean, you go to the stats and what he was able to do. Obviously, the big touchdown run, but the 3 carries for 65 yards. In the passing game, he had 2 catches for 18 yards. He was targeted 2 times, 34 yards after the catch there as well. If you want to go over to the PFF grades, he was the highest graded player to this morning when it came out, or I guess late last night, at a 90.7, a 90.9 in the run. Look, he had 11 snaps. He was very effective in those snaps. Every time he touched the ball, he averaged 21.7 yards. That, to me, was something that I absolutely loved in this game. So I absolutely love that with what they're able to do. I think Buster Faulkner does an incredible job, like I said, of tailoring what he wants this Georgia Tech offense to look like to the personnel. I don't want to say that's a rare thing. When you get that in college football, when you have that, it's why Georgia Tech has had the season offensively that It's why Georgia Tech's had the season offensively that they have had, because you have an offensive coordinator that understands the nuances, the strengths, the weaknesses, and where we can attack with our personnel grouping. And this might be crazy, I would rather have a offensive coordinator or a coordinator on either side of the football that understands his personnel grouping and can utilize it at an elite level, rather than having a coordinator that can't do that, but a group of 4 and 5 stars on defense or offense. I would rather have that. I think that's the coaching acumen that comes into place and matters more. And I think Georgia Tech has that on the offensive side of the football. They have a guy that understands that. So that's the first thing that I liked. I absolutely love that. Going into what Haynes King did, 26-34, 371, a touchdown, 177.8 quarterback rating, 15 carries in this game. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry, 53 yards. Really leaned on him in that final drive to go get the field goal to go win the football game. I liked that. A couple, he just continues to impress. And obviously, we made a lot of headways and news, obviously, in the cycle with not having him in the top 5 for the Heisman campaign. I offered an explanation of why. I think it was a explanation that makes sense. Might not agree with it, but there's validity to the other side of the argument with Haynes King. I'll tell you this: if you go out and do what you did against Boston College and for the past 3 or 4 weeks, and you do it against Pitt and you do it against Georgia, buddy, I've got you there. Like I've got you in New York. It's just against that better competition aspect of where we're seeing there too. So it is, for me, it's something that's really, really important. So I like that, and I appreciate it as well. Joel says Bobby Dodd better be packed out and overflowing if we want to beat Pitt. Appreciate the $5 there, Joel, the donation. So what I liked that. I want to get that out of the way. I liked the way that they played and they utilized their talent. Malik Rutherford had one of probably his better games of the season, to be honest with you. This is a guy that we've known what Rutherford is. I don't want to say he's taken a back seat in this offense, but he hasn't maybe as due to Haynes King controlling a lot of the limelight. Malik Rutherford hasn't been like this all ACC performing receiver week in and week out. The guy had 5 catches for 121 yards. He graded out as an 85.5 overall. He was really good in a lot of different categories. He obviously had the touchdown, and we all kind of expected that. And so I think in terms of this season, right, it maybe hasn't come to fruition consistently week over week, but I think Malik Rutherford is one of the more dependable wideouts. And when we look back on his career, he just constantly was around the football making plays. And I think we can all appreciate that. Rutherford is a very good college football player. It was big for Georgia Tech to keep him in the fold after he flirted with entering the portal and flirted with some teams. That was a really, really big piece to the puzzle in terms of bringing some continuity back on offense. But I love that. So I really, really like the way Malik Rutherford played in this football game. I thought he was dynamic. He's a problem with the ball in his hands in a good way if you're the offense, a bad way if you're the defense. But I thought that was really, really good. In terms of what he was able to do. A couple of the guys, Malachi Hosley. I mean, the one of the big questions coming into the season was, could you have a number 2 running back emerge, right? Could you have a guy that would jump into the fray, would make this a part of a running back room that didn't have to just hand the ball off to Jamal Haynes to be able to do things, didn't have to run Haynes King to the ground? Malachi has answered my question in the offseason resoundingly. And I love that. Like, Georgia Tech predicates everything they want to do on being physical and running the football. Look, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, he's a hometown kid in terms of it, from Columbus, Georgia, playing up there in Atlanta. This is an opportunity for his family to come watch him play. This was a perfect landing spot. And I think this shout out to Norv McKenzie for identifying what he did in the portal and saying, hey, not just saying, look, he's the Ivy League player of the year, but with the jumping competition, being able to brainstorm with Buster Faulkner and brainstorm with Jeep Wade. Hey, does this fit what we want to do? Because the stats speak for itself. The question of how it's going to translate is going to be interesting. Malachi's answered that. And so a shout out to Norv McKenzie. It's shout out to Buster Faulkner, shout out to Jeep Wade, who have all combined, I think, to really blend what was a great player at a lower level, bring him in, set him up for success, And then hats off to Malachi for being that guy. He had a fantastic game yesterday. Just continues to be a player where 15 carries, 107 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have the 3 catches for 47 yards there as well, 31 yards after contact, and the long 35-yard in the passing game there too. So offensively, you're starting to see what I like. I like this group offensively. I think it's dynamic. I think they change of pace things. They do enough things change of pace wise to keep you off balance as a defense. And it's a group that really has a lot of success. That's why this team is positioned to make the ACC title game. I think it's also a group that is positioned to make the playoff. And that's why your offense has checked off every single box they needed to in terms of, hey, can you replicate? Can you be better than you were the year before? There's steady improvement with the offense, and I love to see that. Eric Rivers had a nice game there as well. I mean, I thought this was probably one of his better games, had an unreal catch too, and Mark brings that up. Appreciate you, Mark, there for bringing that up because he had a good game. I mean, look, 7 for 119, the long for 48. Look, it's a bad defense. You took advantage. I thought Georgia Tech did a good job of that. So that's what I liked in this one. The last part of what I liked, and then we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about maybe what worries us what I didn't like, and then what worries us going forward, or what we think going forward. Maybe not worry is the right word. I like the fact that this team doesn't quit. And when adversity strikes, and maybe it's self-inflicted adversity, maybe it's one side of the ball is not playing well, maybe it's one unit's not playing well, whatever it might be, they don't quit fighting. And I think there's a lot of talk. And look, I think this too. I watched the game last night. There's a lot of talk about the team over in Athens being the best second half team in college football. Look, it'd be hard to debate that with the competition that they've played and what they've been able to do. They dig themselves some holes. They do a good job of that. But under Brent Key, one of the calling cards of this program, even when the talent level wasn't what it is now, and maybe you didn't have all the coaching pieces, you didn't have all the puzzle pieces, they never quit. And so, look, the bigger brand is going to get a little bit more of the spotlight, and their schedule reflects why that should happen. But I think Georgia Tech's ability to, whether it's self-inflicted or not, to stay the course of the game, stay even-keeled, has probably been the biggest growth pattern that we haven't talked enough about here this season. And it's a big reason why they're sitting at 9-1, right? I mean, when you look at what this team has gone through, I go back to the road game at Duke where things were kind of, iffy. The game at Wake Forest, the first game of the season at Colorado. I mean, Colorado's not a good football team, but in that moment, to be able to overcome some of the self-inflicted mistakes, you have to have that. Now, one side could look, you're playing with fire, of course, but you'd rather sit there and not be playing with fire, but be able to turn around and say, hey, look, we have some wiggle room. You don't want to exhaust your wiggle room, but we've got some wiggle room because we're able to go and make plays, and we're able to make winning plays. And this is going to blow people's minds, right? Winning teams make the winning plays, and Georgia Tech is a winning team. And that's the big difference right here between years past and other teams across the country. On the very other side of the spectrum, bad teams find ways to lose games. Good teams find a way to win games. Georgia Tech's a good football team. And we'll see what the ceiling of that is, but it's a big reason why they're. And it's probably the one thing, and we saw that come to fruition in the Boston College game. It's probably that one thing that maybe we're not giving Brent Key and the staff enough credit for. We talk about, the scheme and the toughness, the mentality. Being able to do that consistently for the most part. And I know it bit you obviously against, you weren't able to do that against NC State, but that's one game. We're talking about you're striving for perfection here, but you're able to kind of take a step back and say, look, through 10 games, the sample size of is whatever we've got in that pudding, the proof is there and it works. So let's keep doing it. So I thought that thing is, I think that is very much a big piece to what has seen the success. And we saw it again on Saturday. So that's why I wanted to say kind of what I liked from that standpoint. We're going to get to what I didn't like, but before we do, good friends over at Cajun Cousins, make sure holiday season, get that food from them, a little Cajun flair. What's up, everybody? My name is Bryce Koon, and I cover college football here on the Crowded Booth and also over with On3. covering all things LSU. I'm here to tell you about a presenting sponsor this year for us as we get ready to continue tailgate season. It's our friends over at Cajun Cousins Company, based in South Carolina, but serving the entire Southeast with a little bit of that Louisiana flavor. Now, listen, they've got great products. They've got some great merch, including this awesome hat for you LSU fans that I'm rocking right now. But today I want to tell you about something that's going to maybe spice up that tailgate or that event a little bit more. It's Cajun Cousins pepper sauce. Make sure you try it out. Whether it needs to go on the po' boy, whether it needs to go on the fish, or even in some of that jambalaya, make sure you let them know the Crowded Booth sent you and head over to CajunCousins.co.com and get what you need today. Whether it's a family event, whether it's a part of that tailgate here in football season, Cajun Cousins Company is the way to go. I appreciate Cajun Cousins as always. They obviously made that trip to Dallas possible. We're going to be utilizing them and more later this season as well as we get ready to make a trip to Atlanta for Clean Old Fashioned 8. Remind you, Blue Light, that's where we're going to be hanging out. More information coming out on that later. We'll have a graphic going up on social media within the next week or so. Going to be a lot of fun. 3:30 kickoff Eastern inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Can I get some sauce, big bro? Zach says. Zach, I will bring you a mini bottle. It's an elite sauce, an elite pepper sauce. Threw it on a couple po' boys the other day. Good stuff. All right. Here's what I did not like. And I think this is pretty elementary across the board. A lot of people were irritated about this defense and the frustration. So I'm going to go two parts here. I did not like the defensive performance. That is not breaking news for anybody. You cannot win championships or safely compete with a defense performance like you've had the past two games. Now, the North Carolina State game, I sat here and I told you, hey, CJ Bailey is going to get paid this offseason, whether it is staying in Raleigh or whether it's elsewhere. He is viewed, after talking with agents and people around college football, as holy cow. Like, if you can get him somewhere, that kid's a first-round type of quarterback. He has that type of talent. It's untapped, I think, totally. He's very raw in what he does still. Not as raw as last year, but he is that. Part of it is, going back to the North Carolina State game, I think at the time we were like, you know what? This is a one-off. You tip your cap. Dave Doran's a veteran coach. CJ Bailey does nice things. Well, here's the problem. You went into a bye week, and what I didn't like out of this, and I don't even want to – I'm not going to bag on him because there is a point to this, I think, too. This defense does not have the personnel to match up against good to great offenses. Now, look, I might be completely proven wrong in this in 2 weeks, and that'd be awesome if I did. If Georgia Tech goes to Mercedes-Benz, goes toe-to-toe, I think it's going to take a lot of just grit, determination, a lot of the mental factors more than the physical. Because right now with this defense, you don't have the personnel to do several things. The one thing is you don't have a real pass rush. In terms of being able to get home, you can't do that consistently. What does that do? It puts pressure on your back end to create coverage sacks. Well, here's the thing. I like the back end of the defense, actually. I'm a fan of the pieces you have. You're hanging them out and leaving them out to dry because you can't generate pressure with just four. You can't win one-on-one battles up front, and it allowed for a bad offense. Folks, Boston College, I said this on Friday, Boston College has a negative play rate 33% of the time. A third of the time Boston College snaps the football, they're going backwards. It's among one of the worst, if not the worst. It's like 130th in the country. They don't do things right. And you went out there and they torched you. Former Brookwood quarterback, little dual athlete there, and Dylan Lonergan. Man, he looked pretty good. So when you look at this defense and what they're attempting to do, you just don't have the personnel to do those things. And it's frustrating, but at this point, there's nobody else walking through the door. So it's going to be on Blake Gideon and the staff to how do we create so much up front without sacrificing the back end. Now, look, you go to the PFF grades right here. I wanted to make sure I look at this. Overall, Jai Gilmore was your highest rated player at 73.7. Jordan Vandenberg at 68.3. Omar Daniels at 67. Amontre Bradford had 10 snaps. I don't know what we need to see more out of this front seven to legitimize giving Andre Fuller and Amontre Bradford more snaps. 10 snaps for Amontre Bradford, 24 for Andre Fuller. Tay Harris graded out as a 61.5, had obviously a big tackle, just 15 snaps. Braden Manley, 13 snaps. I understand you're trying to create, Triplet had 19. You're trying to create a rotation. At some point, you've got to have guys that can go get the quarterback. I think I sit in the case now where I would rather see some of these young guys play because I think that the upside is there. I'd really like the young edge rushers and front seven guys that you have. Now, is it a lot to ask them to go do that? Does it mean it's going to overhaul everything and take it from one of the best, from one of the mid or not so good average defensive fronts to one of the best? No, I don't think that. But I think that they just don't win one-on-ones. And so on the back end, I like Amari Harvey. I think Amari Harvey is a good football player. There are very few corners, and I saw people complain like, why are we playing so far off? Because you can't get beat. And no, you don't have the personnel to just run press man the entire game. You can't do that. One, you can't do that because it's not feasible because you don't have the players. Like the team that I cover from a 9 to 5 has one guy, and Zach's still in the chat. I would say one guy in Mansour Delane, who's going to be one of the first corners to hear his name called next April, who can just play bump and run man coverage, and you feel good about it. You're going to have to maybe mix in some zone on the other side. We'll see, play some match on the other side. I don't know. I like Woodland and I like Pickett. This isn't an LSU podcast, but you haven't recruited the type of players to be able to do that at Georgia Tech. So to me, it's where can you find a different formula? Because look, I know that Notre Dame bullied and out-physical Pitt on Saturday. And we're going to go more into that game. I'll have some more thoughts tomorrow night. We'll be live Monday night talking and look at some of these things. But you just don't have the opportunity to let people throw the ball on you. Because 2 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago, I guess now, whatever it is, you lost. And this past weekend, you almost lost to a really bad football team because of that. So I like a lot of the pieces that they have. It just has not worked. Is it execution? Is it a balance of how you have to go get the quarterback? You have to disrupt Pitt. You have to disrupt Gunnar Stockton in Georgia in a couple of weeks. You cannot hope and pray that you can just sit in zone and get torn apart. Like, you can't do that. So I think as we kind of sit here and we look at some of the frustration level with some of this stuff, it's just you haven't won the one-on-one battles. I mean, look, AJ Hoffler, 44 snaps, graded out of 56.8. Hoffler is athletically inclined. Is there an opportunity to get someone else involved? I think you're at that point of the season because when you go play Pitt, this is it's a championship game Saturday night in Bobby Dodd. Can you go make the plays needed? I think you've got to exhaust all options. You got to pull every trick out of the bag. I'm not talking about, getting crazy, but if you're really about it, if you're about that type of mentality, some different guys need to get snaps because right now this doesn't work. So, to the point right here, I wanted to get this. Zach says run stunts. Our guys run straight to the line, just play patty cake with the O-line. I think, and Zach, you know what? We might dive into, and I know Gavin's in the back, some background here. Maybe we cut up some of these plays and we look at them on stream on Monday night about what's going into the defense and do a little bit of a film study. We got to cut the ESPN broadcast part out of it and mute it, but we can look at some of that stuff because, I think that when we look at this team, the frustrating part is you have an offense that can make it. It's a playoff-worthy offense, regardless if it's sexy or flashy or not. They're doing things that are winning football games. You've got to figure out a way to create some type of pressure against the quarterback and get home. That's going to be the biggest thing. And I'll say this too. I haven't looked too much into it, Gavin. I know the young man who plays quarterback for Pitt, I don't think is a true runner. I think he's got a little bit of athleticism to move in and around the pocket. But in 3 weeks against Georgia, if you get too aggressive trying to get the quarterback, Gunnar Stockton will make you pick up 5, 7, 8 yards there. He did that a couple times against Texas, Texas arguably has one of the best pass rushers in college football. I know that whole team hasn't lived up to it. Colin Simmons, and if Zach's still in the chat, we know it, got paid to be in Austin. He is a real dude. So that to me is one of those things. Scat says that Tay Harris needs more snaps. I think so too. We'll see how that goes. I'm just not, and maybe I'm holding out, and maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm just not going to sit here and say that I think the defensive backs are just awful. I really do like the group. I just don't think, and it's something, and Gavin pointed this out. I think he shot out a text in our group. It's something I've been saying since the spring. Like, did you do enough in the offseason to go get proven guys? And look, Gavin, what is the kid that transferred to Texas Tech from David Bailey, right? That's the kid that transferred from Stanford. I'm going to keep saying this. Losing a guy like Romello Height is noticeable. It's just noticeable. Now, is Height's having a really good year? Is he a good player? Yeah, he's a solid pass rusher at the FBS at the Power 4 level. That's exactly what he is. If you can in turn, if you could have kept him around or brought someone in similar, I think it would really, really help. Now, does he benefit from being opposite of David Bailey, who's going to be a first-round pick? Yes, because Bailey is a freakazoid off the edge. He's alien type of player in terms of what he brings. He's going to test crazy. He's a good football player. But I think what we've seen now is you lost a little bit of that floor. And so now when you're playing teams that can beat you, and even a team against Boston College that I didn't think could beat you, it's noticeable. So that's where I would end with that. So the last part of this, and then we'll kind of we'll go to what happens next. There's a lot of frustration, fan frustration with Blake Gideon as the DC. The reason we did not go live last night was because I was able to get on the phone with someone and talk for a decent amount of time of a guy who has worked under Blake Gideon before. And I don't think fans know a ton about Blake Gideon. Obviously, he had the preseason press conferences and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where, what is he like? Well, one, talking with this person who has worked in the same room with him before. High intensity, high energy, and a guy that is willing to mix it up was the term. And when I say mix it up, what does that mean? That is mean essentially tells you is that he's a guy who is very hands-on and involved in what he wants to do. So in terms of what Blake Gideon is and the fan reaction to the game, Blake Gideon should not be fired at Georgia Tech. Like, he is a solid recruiter. I like what he's able to do. This is his 10th game calling plays on a defense. There were always going to be growing pains. So for a lot of the people that when I sat here and told you, hey, Santucci's gone and Gideon's here, and I like him, there could be some growing pains. And it was met with, and Gavin, we do this every single week on this show. It was met with, oh, well, I'm not worried about it. Don't worry about it. Well, this is why you're worried about it, because you went on the road and you almost lost to a bad Boston College team. Gavin, I don't know if you were in here earlier because I was going, into it here. Boston College has a negative play rate of 33%. A third of the time, they go backwards. That's bad. So does there need to be pressure on Blake Gideon? Of course. Yeah, there's always pressure to perform. And Brinke's going to place that on his entire staff as well as himself to be able to perform at a high level. That's the expectation, especially now that you're there, right? There's no talking about the opportunity to compete for a championship. You are there. That opportunity is on Saturday. So what can you fix, right? What can you fix? I don't know. I don't like the idea that Blake Gideon needs to be fired after one season. I think that's an emotional overreaction to a tough game, right? So I don't like that. I think Blake Gideon, to me, unless something crazy happens, is going to have at least one more year on the flats at the very minimum if it doesn't go. So to me, I'm not necessarily upset about Blake Gideon. I think this is a personal issue up front. You don't have the guys, and unless, and Gavin can attest this, unless you open up the purse and you open up the pocketbook this offseason, you're going to have some crazy internal development. So it's just one of those things. Gideon, to me, is in his 10th game, his 10 games as a play caller. This defense, for whatever intensive purposes, was lauded as a really great group. It's not, because you didn't play anybody with a true pulse. And then you played a team who is fired up, found something, and at the bare minimum I can take away from the Boston College game is that if there was one thing Boston College you knew they were going to be able to do, and maybe I was wrong in the preview and I didn't say this, you had an offensive mind as the head coach, and you've got a guy in Bill O'Brien that whatever you think about him, he's done it. He has created and managed offenses at a high level, and he's outcoached. Dave Doran outcoached you. Sometimes that happens. So I'm not a fan of just saying, well, let's just fire the guy. That's not a. I'm just glad those type of people are not necessarily in positions of power because that's really not how these things operate. You've got to give it, to that. So it's interesting to me in that sense. AB Corley says firing after 1 year would do too much harm for potential future coaches. Can't imagine one to fill that spot with the rest. Now I'm agree with you. You can't do that. I'm with you there. So there's that. All right, the last piece of the puzzle. Before we get that, I want to talk to you about our friends over at MacArthur Woodworks. TCB10 gets 10% off your order today. And look, you can get some merch from them. It's great stuff. They got sweatshirts, they got t-shirts, they've got hats. Fantastic rope hat here for you. But the big thing about MacArthur Woodworks is it's an intentional gift for the holiday season. Look, we just started decorating for Christmas. It's November the 16th. Don't wait till the last minute. Head over to the website. It's linked down below. Make sure you check them out. I did talk to the owner. He did mention if you needed to use it as a weapon, he does authorize that, I guess, as well. So if you do get a house intruder, you can utilize that. But MacArthur Woodworks is fantastic, from charcuterie boards to cutting boards to RecTech grill shelves to bookshelves to custom anything you want, whatever you can think of. You can literally fill out a form right there and they'll make it for you. So it to me is one of those things that it's a great thing for us to partner with. Also, he's a Georgia Tech grad, so you're supporting a Tech grad in his business. Make sure you check them out. Let them know the Crowded Booth sent you. They do fantastic work. All right, the last thing I've got now. What now? Right, we're going to dive more into this Monday. We're probably going to look at some plays. The biggest thing out of where we're kind of going with this is what now? Well, you have a team that is 9-1. You control your destiny. You win this weekend and you are in the ACC title game playing for a spot in the playoff. Like, despite everything I just told you, we spent 20 minutes telling you what I liked, 15 minutes telling you what I didn't like. Despite everything that I've sat here and told you, you're playing for a spot in the ACC title on Saturday. So what now? What can you realistically fix? Well, the offense is just get healthy, stay healthy. To this level, and we'll just be real about it, rip the Band-Aid off. Is Jamal Haynes still hurt? Is he not as effective? What is the deal? I don't know. I can't speak to that. No one knows in terms of what, unless you're talking to people inside the building who are willing to give that out, and that doesn't happen. So, or at least as much as people think it does. So it's one of those things where Haynes is going to be an accessory back, to what you're going to do with Malachi and now Jordan Allen in the run game. I like they've gotten him more involved. So offensively, it's really not a massive concern. What now? You're going to keep doing what you're doing. Defensively, we had a comment earlier about stunts. I think that you've got to get exotic. You have to be willing to take some chances, and you have to identify who are those guys, who are your best options on this front seven that can go win a one-on-one battle. That's who has to be on the field. So, look, I don't know necessarily when the most physical practice is. I'd imagine it's a Tuesday for Georgia Tech. That's what is kind of across the board in college football. If you have the opportunity, you've got to figure that out. And you probably have some data points already through 10, 11 weeks of practice plus fall camp. But you got to figure that out because you have to, if you're Blake Gideon, you have to create pressure. And so if it's selling out, you've got to do that. Force Pitt to make the play and beat you. If they do that, you tip your cap. I think you're going to have to live and die by being aggressive. I think that's something I want to see. It's something that a lot of fans want to see. And I think it's something that Georgia Tech's going to have to do if they're going to win this game on Saturday. I like them early on. If I was making a pick right now, I like Georgia Tech to win this game, especially. They just announced a night game in Bobby Dodd. I think there's a lot of promise to that. But as you're sitting here on a, Sunday afternoon, I think you got to play more aggressive. And you got to figure out what you can do there. Is it Blake Gideon style? We'll see. But it's one of those things where you've got to do some things different because what has happened the past 2 weeks, obviously the bye week in between, but the past 3 weeks, whatever you've talked about or anything hasn't worked. And now you're playing two teams with pulses on offense. You have not played teams like that this year. So you better be ready. Better be ready. I think they're going to benefit from playing at home, though. So we'll see what happens. It's a challenge. I think it's a challenge to everybody on this defense to up the level of play, understanding what's ahead of you, like Brent Key said the post game. So I think that's what now. What now is you go win, you get to Charlotte. And then you get ready for clean old-fashioned hate. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you thank all of our sponsors. It is absolutely fantastic. We get to do this each and every single week, and they're a big reason why. Cajun Cousins, Section 103, and our friends over at MacArthur Woodworks. You can give it a nice little sticker from them, too, right there. It's great stuff. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, continue to hang out with us in the Discord. We'll be live later this evening, recapping Week 12, talking about some of this ACC race updates. Then tomorrow night, Gavin and I are going to put our brains together, and we're going to work on trying to cut up some of this film and really look at this defense. What are the issues with this defense? Then we'll be talking college football Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Join us. We appreciate you. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, continue to grow those numbers. We appreciate you. And once again, final reminder, not a final reminder, but final one of this show at least. Clean old-fashioned hate, blue lot, outside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Come hang out with us, little pregame tailgate for what should be an absolutely phenomenal football game. Appreciate you. Thanks for watching Swarm Talk, #1 Georgia Tech Talk show on the internet. We appreciate you.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.